So, if you guys don't know and aren't in the South Asian sphere on social media, Canadian artist Tommy Genesis had made a set of pictures for her new song that she just put out. On her Instagram, she posted herself painted in blue and was posing in a very provocative way with Hindu and Christian religious symbols. And the Indians got mad. Here is the image. I had to blur it out for the YouTube and TikTok algorithm. And here are some comments that I had found under her post and posts on other Instagram pages that were talking about her newest photo shoot. People were mainly hating on her, some even calling death threats to her, saying that she is like mocking Hinduism. So Tommy Genesis' family is from Tamil Nadu and they converted into Christianity. She is half Indian. Immediately after seeing her post, I thought she did an amazing job. Like, whoever was in charge of the creative direction, the shooting, the editing, they did amazing. So she managed to evoke feelings of hatred in a lot of people. But for me, I saw the rage and sexuality of a brown woman portrayed in a highly effective, creative way through her photos. Now, I felt compelled to talk about this whole thing because I myself had a similar experience to this in 2021. To give you guys some backstory and some context, I had just moved out of a very toxic immigrant household with just $7,000 to my name. By the way, I thought that was a lot of money back then, and I thought that it would be steady. I had just began my online schmex work career, and this brought the attention of obviously a lot of Indian men. I'm also an artist. I draw and I paint. So with my content creation, I really wanted to do something different and create art, and decided that I wanted to paint some Hindu goddesses, Kali Ma and Lakshmi, onto a pair of jeans that I had thrifted. Here is a picture of what they look like. And I got so many people reacting the same way to me. I wish I took screenshots back then of all the different threats that were coming my way. Anyways, my page got mass reported and was temporarily taken down until I signed an appeal. Some people will be like, you deserve this. That's what you get for disrespecting our religion. And to that I have to say that I think that most of the hatred towards people doing things a bit differently than what tradition says, it comes from jealousy, from the fact that South Asian diaspora are living in the first world, the Western world, the world that is highly regarded, especially in India. White people and whiteness are seen as God and holy, and not everybody is able to experience the West. They just see how the West portray themselves in media, and also how India itself portrays the West in our media. So they really fail to see how isolating it is to be a South Asian immigrant, because South Asian culture in itself is so entirely different from the Western culture, and it is not graciously accepted by the Westerners, especially in your younger years where you are the most susceptible to whatever is happening in your environment. Being a first generation immigrant and going to school in America with white people all around you feels like you are not seen, at the same time seen so hard and judged. Yes, being in the West grants you a lot of different opportunities. The fact that I'm sitting here right now, being able to dress the way I am, do what I do, and speak about it and show you guys how I feel about certain things, that is a product of the West. And I know a lot of people in India, some of my family included growing up, didn't even have money for food and all that. So I am very well aware of my privilege living here in the West. But that doesn't mean that I'm privileged compared to my oppressors in the West. I think that a lot of this hatred that is coming toward Tommy Genesis and what I had experienced in 2021 is, let's be quite honest, misogyny. South Asian culture is misogynistic as of right now. I think it's so funny how Indians are okay with seeing pale skin, almost white women dancing half naked in these traditional cultural attires and lehengas and saris, inspired by that. Probably getting paid by some pervy Indian director or producer for this role, which will mainly be consumed by other Indian men. Yet, the second that a darker skinned woman or an independent woman wears the similar type of attire yet takes agency of her own body through choosing to do that and directly profiting off of it, that's an issue. Now, again, the people are gonna say that that's what we get for disrespecting Hinduism. Mind you, the same Hinduism that carved naked people having intercourse on the side of a temple, especially Kali Ma with her breasts out, the same Hinduism that invokes their god by dressing up as them. Now, the response to some Hindus might be, oh, the people that are doing that aren't really Hindus, they're not doing it right. Probably like my grandparents, for example, would say stuff like that. Now, I just want you to use a little bit of your brain and maybe ask yourself, does everybody have a different way of practicing religion? Is there only one way to practice religion? If your answer to that is yes, then ask yourself, why do some families decide to focus their worship on Ganesha or other gods, for example, like Krishna, Shiva? Let me tell you the answer to that, because it is so obvious to anybody who has had the privilege of growing up and experiencing two different cultures. And the answer to that is that there is no one way to practice religion or spirituality. Spirituality is deeply personal, and forcing people to worship in a certain way leads to tyranny. Because something that I have seen with my own eyes is how certain Hindus think that they're worshiping God by sitting down, closing their eyes, pressing their palms together, and in their head begging for God to change their lives and circumstances, but not doing anything themselves to implement that change. While other Hindus do practices like yoga, mindfulness, still doing the puja, still doing the prayers and all that, but they are internally changing themselves. Also, there is so much diversity to Hinduism itself, and there is no one way to practice it. I also believe that people who are criticizing and wishing horrible things happening to Tommy Genesis are mad because they don't think that she is worshiping. They think that she is exploiting Hinduism in a grossly sexual manner. Threats or killing somebody in the name of God is the furthest thing from Hinduism. Let's go back to my point about female sexuality and bodily autonomy and agency. Indian immigrants, especially women and girls, have a different upbringing to Indian men that live in India. So most of the time, not only do we deal with subtle or overt racism in our school and our community, but we deal with the expectation of being the perfect little daughter that our parents can control and easily manipulate. Luckily, not everybody has the same experience, and I'm not going to speak for Tommy Genesis's childhood. Me personally, that is what I went through. Not only was my sexuality and ability to discover it suppressed, but I wasn't allowed to dabble in beautifying myself in any sort of way. Because one thing I've learned from living in the West is that beauty is power to some sort of extent. You already know us Indian girls, we are hairy. We are probably got more hair than the white boys in our classrooms. And so bullying as a young kid by other kids, especially for something that you can't control, let alone are even given the ability to change by your own parents, it really sucks, because people will make you feel like you're disgusting for the hair that you have on your body, the hair that you have on your legs, your armpits, your little mustache. Like, they really look at you like you're disgusting. Now, if I had been raised in a culture like India, I might have been able to find other girls who had went through similar situations. I wouldn't have felt so isolated. But in the Western American world, it felt incredibly isolating to me. American peers being able to do small things like wear makeup, shave their legs, get their hair done, get their nails done, feeling confident about themselves and growing into what it means to be a young woman. While I, on the other hand, felt ugly. And I was literally called ugly by my parents. They were trying to make me feel small. They were trying to make me feel ugly. They made sure to drill that into my head. I felt trapped and I could do nothing about it. Obviously, when I turned 18, I was forced to go to a college in a different state, which I did not want to go to because I knew that my life experiences were zero and it was not going to help me. So I went crazy. I kind of wilded out. I had suddenly discovered that I am sexually attractive. And to any young girls that are watching this, let me just tell you that it's not hard to make men find you sexually attractive, and that should not be like the one life goal that you strive to be and experience. You can beautify yourself and you can make them find you beautiful, but wield that power to work in your benefit. And let me tell you something, sleeping with them doesn't really benefit you, especially in this society where abortion rights are being taken away. So that's a whole different topic. Let's go back to the point that I was making now. Anyways, because of my lack of experience and being able to trial and error my way through life at a young age, I literally let myself be hurt physically, mentally, and emotionally in the name of having pretty men lust over me. And so you cannot raise your child in the West and expect them to act like they're from your country that you're originally from. But anyways, this is deterring from my point a little bit. I think it provides a little bit of value and insight that a lot of haters could use. Now, I'm not trying to say that the Western culture is all that great. In fact, I do have this theory that like since America doesn't really have any like natural resources, their only way of making themselves seem really great is through exploiting beauty and women. So there's a difference when a woman does those certain things by herself for the benefit of herself. Let me reiterate that, and not for the validation of others. And you have to be able to go through trials and errors in order to figure out what you want and don't want. And in order to do that, you have to have a certain level of freedom too. Freedom to try things out in a new space where you are protected. And South Asian women in general aren't even protected, let alone given freedom. And it's funny how a woman decides to portray herself on social media and online somehow has an immediate effect on her family's reputation. So I'm not even going to try to get into the very prevalent that happens in South Asian culture, but I am going to point out how a lot of men are able to get away with doing horrible things or even the same things that the women are doing. For example, let's take Hanumankind. He is an Indian rapper, and in one of his music videos, he was trying to portray himself as being cool and edgy by riding a motorcycle around an arena with Sai Baba on the front of it. In this song, he raps about very different provocative things. Immediately off the bat, he starts off the song by telling someone to shut the F up. Now, I'm gonna list some quotes, and you can tell me whether you think they are trying to be sexual or talk about sexual things and his sexuality. Top-notch hose, pushing contraband.
Oh, he actually said pushing culture, baby, but he does actually talk about pushing contraband in another part of the song where he goes, baby girl, bring out the goodie, snuck it in inside her hoodie.
The one who gets her wetter. Get up off my D. Only thing I'm breaking is her back with the motions. He literally calls himself Hanuman or refers to the god, and in his songs he talks about very sexual things. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the song, I love the beat, but he's literally doing the same thing that Tommy Genesis is doing. I don't see hordes and hordes of Indian men calling others to mass report his page to get it taken down. So it's only a problem when women do it. It's only a problem when women that look like your sister and mother do it. I think men have failed to realize how their mothers even created them in the first place. Your mother isn't this magical woman who came down from heaven and was impregnated miraculously. She had schmecks. Now, whether or not that schmecks was pleasurable to her is a whole different story and a whole different topic. She had smecks. That's how she made you. She was a beautiful woman, and that's how your dad was drawn to her. Now, I don't think that men are stupid. I think that they're very well aware of what they're doing. But I have a theory as to why they do it. There is only one guarantee in existing and living, which is suffering is going to happen all around you or to you. Animals in the wild need to viciously murder other animals in order to feed themselves and their young. I think that as human beings who've created society where a lot of this primal suffering happens less, nevertheless, suffering is still bound to happen. Utopia will never exist, yet we try to push our best for it. That's what we're supposed to do anyways. So whether you are consciously or subconsciously knowing this truth, I think that a lot of times we tend to select a group of people or a group of animals to where it's okay that they suffered, where their suffering has a greater cause and benefit for us. Everybody partakes in this. I don't think there's any way that we cannot partake in this, but I do think that we have to try our best to reduce how our actions might lead to other people's suffering, where their suffering has a greater cause and benefit for us, and we just plaster that mentality when things like this are brought up, because it's just easier to do that and move on, because we don't want to do the hard work of changing how we think and behave in order to create a better world for everybody. So I guess what I'm trying to say is basically with this entire video is that everybody exploits themselves in capitalism. We all have to do it, and there is no one way to practice a religion, and with all this backlash that Tommy Genesis is getting, I don't think that it's warranted, and I think it's really hypocritical for people to criticize her and yet on the other hand allow men who are basically doing the same thing that she's doing to get away with it, and in fact congratulate them about it. There is definitely a double standard when it comes to what women are supposed to do and what men are supposed to do in South Asian culture, and it's all rooted in misogyny and patriarchy. Tommy Genesis and her photo shoot was incredible and beautiful, and there's absolutely no reason that anybody like us should be getting threats simply for expressing ourselves. And my criticism, it comes to these men, these South Asian men who will criticize a woman for showing her body, but on the same hand, go to the strip club with their boys, or will engage in work, or will lust after women. Like, if you're gonna act like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, you're a woman, you're da da da, like, why aren't you yourself also taking the time to not partake in it when it doesn't benefit you? When it benefits you, you decide to partake in it, but when it doesn't benefit you and in fact benefits the person who you are oppressing, then they have a problem with it. Because women knowing how to wield our sexuality is the most scariest thing in the entire world to men, second to other men. Alright, you guys, that is all I have to say about this topic. Make sure to go follow me on all of my socials. They'll be linked down below. Bye.